set? Okay? Okay, here we go. Ready? One, two, three.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Victor Garcia. I am assistant professor in the Department of Pharmacology, and it is my honor to serve as the Grand Marshal at the 164th Commencement Ceremony of New York Medical College. Before we begin, I have a very brief announcement and kind of a little thing we're looking out for, which is this afternoon, the aisles and exit areas must remain clear. Do not approach the stage during the program to take any photographs. We have professional photographers, as you can see them right now, for that particular purpose. If anyone obstructs the aisles and engages in activity which violates the rules set down by the fire marshal, our public safety officers will escort them out of the tent. I have my own personal security team. His name is Dr. Jan Galipter over there. He has the ceremonial mace, and he's from Brooklyn. I need to say no more. At this time, I ask that you silence your cell phones and electronic devices. Mr. John Lancia will now lead us in the national anthem. Please rise and remain standing until the invocation.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Revered members of the clergy, Chairman Mark, members of the Board of Trustees, Chancellor Halpern, deans, officers, and faculty, the candidates are in their places. The New York Medical College commencement is now in session. Rabbi Baruch Fogel will offer the invocation.
Ribon Kol Olam, Master of the world, bless all of us who have gathered here today to take part in New York Medical College Graduate School of Biomedical Science commencement exercises for the class of 2023. Almighty God, you have placed us in this world and directed us to contribute to it for the betterment of society. As the prophet Isaiah says, "For thus say the Lord that created the heavens, he is God. He formed the earth and made it. He established it. He created it, not for nothingness." All of our graduates have heard this call and taken upon themselves the task of fulfilling this divine directive. Armed with their degrees that they labor diligently for, they are ready to help others, to educate others, to protect others, and to discover cures and remedies, all for the sake of making this world a better place for all. At this auspicious occasion, we pray to you, Kel Elyon, Almighty God, give strength, courage, and fortitude to these women and men who have now moved forward into this great world and begin their careers of service to mankind. Bless them as they set out as your agents to serve the community in all places where their lives can make a difference. We also pray to you, dear God, that you shower your blessing upon our graduates and all their loved ones, parents, spouses, children, mentors, and all other dear ones who have been there for support and encouragement, financial, emotional, who have helped them reach this milestone, who have sacrificed so much so that our students can persevere and succeed. May your abundant blessing always be showered on those who enter the halls of this institution. Bless the deans, the faculty, the administration, the staff, and all others who work so hard and with such dedication to ensure that this institution thrives and succeeds. Torrey University was created to serve, strengthen, and improve your world, dear God, your world with its rich diversity and ever-increasing potential for good. And we pray that these accomplished students be given the opportunity to actualize that good. Almighty God, we ask for your continued divine guidance so that we, together, can achieve that great potential. Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi Fogel. Graduates, you may now be seated. I am pleased to introduce Mr. Joseph Mark, Chairman of the Board of Trustees.
Honored guests, members of the administration, faculty, family, and friends, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, I am pleased to welcome you to this momentous occasion. To the graduates of the class of 2023, you have each demonstrated remarkable aptitude that will travel with you on your new journey in the biomedical sciences. Your academic achievements, dedication, and desire to make the world a better place may bring you to some far-off, wonderful places, but we hope that you always remain close in heart and spirit to New York Medical College. On behalf of all of us at New York Medical College and Torrey University, allow me to wish you all the best for a lifetime of success, health, and happiness. From my personal experiences, I know that so many of our dreams at first seem impossible, then they seem improbable, and then we summon the will, they soon become inevitable. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mark, and we're incredibly honored that you're here, and we thank you and the Board of Trustees. I call now Dr. Marina Holz, Deans of the Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences, to the podium to present our awards.
Good afternoon, graduates. I think something is wrong with the system here. Good afternoon, graduates. All right. Hello, families. All right. I'm so excited to be here with you today to celebrate all of our graduate school graduates and to honor some outstanding award recipients. And if there's one lesson to be learned here today, is that if you work hard, study, show up, show some team spirit, you too can have 72-degree weather for your commencement. So it is my great pleasure to present the Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences Commencement Awards to a group of outstanding graduates. Our first award is the Martha Lucas Pate PhD Award. It was established by the Board of Trustees in memory of Martha Lucas Pate, PhD, trustee of the college, and this award is given annually to a graduate student in the biomedical sciences who has demonstrated academic excellence and leadership in social and humane concerns in medicine, science, or health. And this year, the award recipient is Elizabeth Berry. Elizabeth's dissertation was under the mentorship of her advisor, Dr. Christopher Leonard, who is the professor and interim chair of the Department of Physiology. And her dissertation was titled, The Impact of Chronic Morphine Exposure on the Intrinsic Electrical Properties of Orexin Neurons. Our next award is the Graduate Faculty Council Award for a recipient of a PhD degree. The Graduate Faculty Council Award is presented annually to one or more PhD graduates who have a record of high academic achievement and have best demonstrated noteworthy creativity and scholarship in biomedical research. And this year's awardee is Jonathan Pascal. Jonathan worked in the laboratory of his advisor, Dr. Victor Garcia, who is here working hard. His title was Uncovering the Signaling Structure and Function of the 20-hit GRP75 pairing, identifying the chemokine CCL5 as a negative regulator of GRP75. Our next award is the Graduate Faculty Council Award that is presented to a recipient of an MD PhD degree. And this particular award is presented to someone who has a record of high academic achievement and have best demonstrated noteworthy creativity and scholarship in biomedical research while pursuing their MD PhD degree. And this year's recipient is Roxana Navi. Roxana worked in the laboratory of her advisor, Dr. Esther Saban, who is the professor of biochemistry and molecular biology and the Sidney E. Frank Distinguished Professor of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences. Roxana's dissertation was entitled The Effects of Traumatic Stress and Role of the Neuropeptide Y System as a Therapeutic in Females. Our next set of awards are the Graduate Faculty Council Awards for recipients of master's degrees. They're presented annually to graduates who have a record of high academic achievement and best demonstrated excellence in scientific writing, critical analysis, and scholarship. For master's award in literature review category, we have two recipients. The first one is Cameron Daneshwar. And the second award recipient is Maria Kozlowskaya. And our final award is the Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences Community Service Award. This award is presented to a graduate student in the Master of Science program who has achieved academic excellence and who has best exhibited the qualities of collegiality, generosity in spirit, and concern for the well-being of others, or unselfish efforts on behalf of fellow students, the college community, and the greater community outside of the college. And this year's award recipient is Mirella Verde. Congratulations to all awardees.
Thank you so much, Dean Holz. Next, we would like to welcome to the podium Elizabeth Ann Berry, candidate for the degree Doctor of Philosophy, who will give the student address.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome, families, faculty, chairman, board of trustees, chancellor, deans, distinguished guests, and fellow graduates of mine. It's an honor to be this year's commencement speaker. We are all gathered here today to celebrate the completion of our advanced degrees. But we are also gathered here today to celebrate the experiences that we had along the way, which shaped us into who we are today. To start, I want to share a quote with you from one of my favorite authors, Brandon Sanderson. "To love the journey is to accept no such end. I have found through experience that the most important step that a person can take is always the next one. Journey before destination." We have all gone on our own unique journeys to get to this destination, finishing our degrees. We all made it through each challenge we faced. We kept taking one step forward, no matter how small that step seemed at the time. Each of us have had our own individual experiences during our academic journey here at this college. And these experiences have shaped us and made us who we are, prepared individuals who are ready to move on to the next steps in our lives, whether that be seeking out a job or continuing on in our education to, for example, to be medical or dental professionals. Today, I want to share with you some of my experiences from my journey here at New York Medical College. I have had the opportunity to get to know many of the faculty at this school and be a part of almost every department. I have been at New York Medical College since August 2015, when I entered in the master's program. And the first department I had the pleasure of being a part of was the microbiology and immunology department. The culture of this department and the community they create is a little snapshot of what this school offers. I remember sitting as a new student in Dr. Raj Taiwari's office when I was first accepted and planning the courses that I would take and feeling like I was so welcome, and even though I didn't know him that well yet. Or talking with Dr. John Galipter and getting inspired by his research while sitting in his office among all the souvenirs that he's collected on his trips. And microbiology too with Dr. Dana Mordew when I learned to write my first grant proposal. The next department I became a part of on campus was the pharmacology department. I was lucky enough to be hired by Dr. Austin Guo and as a research assistant during my first year at the school. The pharmacology department is a highly collaborative, and I was welcomed right into their family, invited to the holiday parties, and was allowed to shadow other students and fellows to learn different laboratory techniques. One thing that stood out to me working under Dr. Austin Guo was his ability to make his research into a story. He has a way of making each experiment fit in like pieces to a puzzle and create a manuscript and experimental plan that leads you step by step throughout it. I think the collaborative nature of this department fuels this kind of thinking. After securing my position in the PhD program with a leap of faith, where I not only did not finish the master's degree that I entered into, deciding to jump right into the PhD program, but also only applied to NYMC and no other school, I was welcomed into yet another department on campus. The biochemistry department adopted me with open arms after Dr. Joseph Wu hired me as the new teaching assistant for the graduate biochemistry course, a position I then held for 5 years. It has been such an honor working with the professors of this department. Dr. Zongtao Zhang let me sit at a little desk outside his office in his lab and work through his enzymatic questions so that I could make sure I was explaining it correctly to students. Dr. Joseph Wu allowed me to find the freedom and find my own teaching style as the teaching assistant, and eventually allowed me to transition into actually lecturing in the course. These experiences have allowed me to become comfortable speaking in a front of room of a people like you today, and also allow me to communicate my own research in an effective and understandable way. Lastly, I made my home in 2 more departments on campus. The department where I completed my PhD degree by title, the cell biology department, and the physiology department where I completed my PhD research under the mentorship of Dr. Christopher Leonard. Under the guidance of Dr. Victor Fried, Dr. Joseph Ettlinger, and Dr. Kenneth Larea, I was able to further develop my knowledge of cell biology through their course as well as through my qualifying exam. Under the mentorship of Dr. Christopher Leonard and the trust that he gave me to independently lead my experiments, I successfully completed my PhD research and learned how to be a proficient scientist. My dissertation focused on the specific neurons in the brain called orexin neurons and how they are impacted by opioid addiction. Addiction to drugs of abuse is a growing problem in today's society, and current treatments often fail to adequately manage the negative withdrawal symptoms that drive relapse. Therefore, development of more effective therapies is a high priority. The orexin neuropeptide system is a key regulator of many physiological processes, including reward, and findings from my research provide evidence that the functionality of these neurons is altered following chronic opioid exposure, and that blocking the actions of orexin may have therapeutic value in disrupting drug-induced brain adaptations that drive addiction. New York Medical College has been my home for the past 8 years, and during this time, I have grown immensely as an individual. My journey has been made up of all the experiences that I have had in each department, some of which I touched on today. But I ask all you to look back at your time here in the Graduate School of Biomedical Science, whether it has been 1 or 2 years in the GSBMS Master's Program, or a longer period of time if you are one of my fellow PhD graduates today. And think of the professors or fellow students which have stood out to you and all the meaningful relationships that you have built. Think of where you were before you started this degree and see how far you've come in your ability to study, retain information, develop new experiments, critically analyze literature, and so much more. As we graduate today, we embark on the next chapter of our lives. Some of us will go on to obtain another degree. Some will work at universities and colleges, hospitals, and go into industry. The possibilities are endless. And yet, no matter where we end up, we all leave New York Medical College better prepared to contribute to discovering new science, better methods of patient care, science policy, communication, etc. I would like to thank my friends and family who have stuck with me for this tremendous journey, Dr. Christopher Leonard for his support and guidance in the completion of my PhD, and my fellow lab members, both past and present, as well as the staff of all of the departments that I have been a part of my journey. And with that, I would like to offer congratulations to my fellow graduates. We did it. The world is waiting for us to continue on our journeys, and I can't wait to see what is next for each of us.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I will now like to introduce Dr. Edward C. Halpern, Chancellor and Chief Executive Officer, who will introduce our 2023 commencement speaker.
Good afternoon. Jeffrey M. Friedman received his undergraduate degree from the Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, an MD from Albany Medical College, and a PhD from Rockefeller University. He was a medical house officer at Albany Medical Center. He is a professor at Rockefeller University and an investigator of the Howard Hughes Medical Institute. Professor Friedman's research on obesity received national attention when he and his colleagues isolated the mouse obesity gene and its human homologue. They subsequently found that injections of the encoded protein leptin decreased body weight of mice by reducing food intake and increasing energy expenditure. The word leptin is derived from the Greek leptos, means thin, light, or small. This hormone is one of the major signals of energy status and influences our feeling of appetite and satiety. It motivates behavior towards the maintenance of our energy reserves. It was the first fat cell-derived hormone described. Professor Friedman has continued in his research to strive to understand the genetic basis of obesity in humans and the mechanisms by which leptin transmits its weight-reducing signal. For his scientific work, Professor Friedman has been the recipient of a great many prizes. A very partial list would include the Alfred Lasker Basic Medical Research Award, the King Faisal International Prize, the Wolf Prize in Medicine, and the Breakthrough Prize in Life Sciences. He is a member both of the National Academy of Sciences and the National Academy of Medicine. I personally discovered Professor Friedman in all places in the November 2018 issue of Harper's Magazine, when I came upon his biographical essay on Israel Simon Kleiner. He was dean of our medical school from 1921 to 1925. He was a scientist who was pursuing what eventually would be the discovery of insulin. Kleiner was among the first, one of the very few PhDs to be a dean of a school of medicine in the United States. And he was probably the first Jewish dean of a historically majority medical school in the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to welcome to the podium this year's commencement speaker, Professor Jeffrey Friedman.
Students, faculty, families, board, Chancellor Halperin, it's really a great honor to be with you today and help celebrate this wonderful occasion for so many of you. This is an incredibly exciting time for you, and I think it will be interesting for you all to track among yourselves the paths your career takes, be it academia, industry, education, even law, or other directions you might go. Whatever direction you take, however, I consider it highly likely that you will, at some point along the way, face some significant adversity. And how well you do in life will have as much to do with how you manage that adversity and power your way through it as any of the other talents you bring forward into your careers. I want to give you an example of someone who faced adversity and tell you more about that personal story. I think it's illustrative in a number of ways, and at least for me raises a number of questions about the nature of what it is, the nature of what we do is. And the story I want to tell you about is about Dr. Kleiner, who you just heard about. I had learned first about Dr. Kleiner reading a fantastic book, which I would recommend to anyone interested in science, be they a scientist or a layperson. It's called The Discovery of Insulin by Michael Bliss. He's a Toronto historian who went through all of the historical antecedents to the discovery of the insulin in Toronto by Banting, Best, Collip, and MacLeod in 1922. At the beginning of the book, he goes through the background leading to the discovery of insulin and all the scientists who had contributed to it before the monumental discovery of the Toronto group. One of the individuals he wrote about briefly was Dr. Kleiner, who had done some early work on the regulation of blood glucose. And he describes Kleiner's work in his book as follows. Of all the publications before the work in Toronto, his was the most well developed. His controls had been impressive. His follow-up discussion was a beautiful piece of scientific writing. In 1919, he was closer to success than any of them, and later on made no claims at all. Bliss does not say what happened to Kleiner. He just disappeared from the scene in 1919 and was never heard of in the scientific community writ large, other than, as I'll tell you, the impact he had on this institution. Kleiner worked at Rockefeller University, where I now work, a century before I had the good fortune of identifying a hormone. He did not, and I wondered why. And so I called Bliss, who I had encountered a few times in Toronto, and I said, well, what happened to Kleiner? And he said, I don't know. I've wondered. If you find out, give me a call. So I decided to find out. One digression, I didn't know really where to begin. I'm not a historian. I went to the Rockefeller Archives. They found some materials that were interesting and told me there was something interesting here. But I thought it'd be useful to try to find his family. So I found his obituary in 1966. I looked through who his relatives were, and I found the name of his daughter, Ruth Glantz. There are not many Ruth Glantz in the phone book or on the internet. There was one in Connecticut. I called the number. They said, oh, Ruth has moved to Phoenix. I called a facility for older people in Phoenix, and Ruth answered the phone. And we had a lovely conversation because we were both interested in the same thing, and that is talking about her father. And through Ruth and her sons, Israel's grandsons, I learned much about his personal story along with other sources along the way. So this is Kleiner's story. He was raised in New Haven, went to Yale undergrad, got a PhD from Yale in 1908. His PhD concerned the fate of glucose injected into animals. And in 1911, after a brief teaching stint at Tulane, he moved to Rockefeller to work with one of the giants in physiology of the day, Samuel Meltzer. Meltzer is the person who first developed a respirator. But Kleiner went there to study the regulation of blood glucose. And there had been a major technical advance at the time. For the first time in the history of science, it became possible to measure the amount of glucose in blood. Before, it would take 30 cc's of blood, making it impossible to do meaningful animal studies, and that had now been reduced to less than a milliliter. Shortly after arriving, Kleiner did an amazing experiment. He took diabetic dogs. It had been known since 1898 in the work of Minkowski that if you remove the pancreas, dogs become diabetic. The explanation for this was not known. Some people believed that the pancreas made a hormone that regulated blood glucose, which we now know to be the case. Others believed that was not the explanation. Many, many investigators have been following up on it, but none had been able to measure blood glucose previously. Kleiner could, and he does the following experiment in 1914. He takes diabetic dogs who don't have a pancreas. In one case, he gives a bolus of blood glucose, and their blood glucose goes sky high. He now repeats that experiment, co-administering an extract of pancreas, and now the blood glucose does not go high. He presents this work at the National Academy of Science in 1914. This is for the cognoscenti, the first glucose tolerance test, as best as I can tell. And it is met with massive acclaim. There's a New York Times article in 1914, the headline of which reads, "Scientists discover the cause of diabetes, now seek cure." Meltzer, his lab head, is not happy about this. He reacts negatively, claiming that the yellow dog journalists will not tell him how to conduct his research. He directs Kleiner at the time to do a somewhat abstract set of experiments, trying to figure out why the glucose didn't leave the blood in the presence of the pancreatic extract. Kleiner pursues this for a little while, but then wants to prove that he has the pancreatic hormone that had been suggested by many since the work of Minkowski. The sine qua non at the time for identifying a pancreatic hormone was to show that it would stimulate the metabolism of blood glucose. And you could assess this at the time and still by measuring blood gases in a measurement that some of you may have heard of named an RQ. But the ability to measure the RQ, the amount of CO2 produced from nutrient, was limited to only 3 laboratories in Europe. So Kleiner goes on his great adventure to Europe to learn this method, to come home and prove that he had the diabetic hormone. He is in Europe in 1914 when Archduke Ferdinand is assassinated in Serbia. Europe explodes. He barely makes it out of Paris home, comes back to a Rockefeller that is now transformed by World War I. At the time, there was no NIH. There was no funding for research other from institutions such as Rockefeller that had an endowment. And so when he returns to Rockefeller, the research mission is altered by the fact that Rockefeller Institute, or now university, is now providing antisera to treat infectious disease to the U.S. Army. They are basically underwriting a lot of the medical treatment for about 3/5 of the great pathogens of the day. This is pre-antibiotics, and the only way to treat infectious disease at the time is by immunizing horses and then giving horse serum to patients who have been infected. There's very little place for Meltzer's research at this point, given that changed direction at the university. And in fact, in 1916, he is transferred to Yale back to teach because all of the other professors there all the medical professors have joined the war effort. He returns to Rockefeller in 1918 and is told the lab that he worked in, Meltzer's lab, is going to close. The reason it's closing is because of a separate reason altogether. Meltzer has started a pacifist organization during the war, opposed to the war. It's called the Medical Brotherhood. It ultimately has more than 10,000 members. Flexner, the head of the institute, is unhappy with this new direction, feeling that Meltzer is not spending sufficient time on his research, and moreover is concerned about the political implications of having a former German scientist forming a pacifist organization. In fact, those fears are realized in 1916 when a New York Times article appears accusing Meltzer of pro-German sympathies. Because of these reasons, in 1918, Flexner decides the Meltzer lab will close and Kleiner has to find a new job. There is no place for him at the institution, despite the promise of the work that he has been conducting. Kleiner is in a panic. He has a young wife, a young daughter, he's supporting his mother-in-law, and he has no means of support, and there are no jobs at very, very few places. But in 1919, he's offered a position as the head of biochemistry at the New York Homeopathic Hospital. Before he leaves, though, he does one last experiment in 1919. And I find it very poignant that he does this experiment because by this time he knows his research career is over. But what he does in 1919 is show that an extract of pancreas, but not salivary gland, can cure diabetes in a dog. It's an incredible paper. It's one of the most beautiful papers I've ever written. And he writes this paper, he submits this paper the last month he's at the Institute and sends the paper to Flexner. He moves now to New York Homeopathic Hospital, the institution you now work at, and begins working in biochemistry. In 1921, he actually becomes dean in the midst of a major financial crisis that is alleviated only when he raises substantial amounts of funds from the Waterman Pen Company. He precedes his chair. He's an educator, no active research at the time. And in 1922, he reads an article in the paper about the discovery of insulin. Now imagine you'd had the opportunity to discover the most important hormone ever discovered. It's been taken away from you at the last minute, and now you're reading in 1922 that someone else had discovered it. If he was crushed, he never revealed it to anyone, including his family. He simply wrote a letter to Flexner reminding him that this was the work he had been pursuing and resent him the paper he had previously sent him in 1919. He continues his career here at the New York Homeopathic Hospital, now New York Medical College, for the rest of his life. In 1925, he steps down as dean to pursue a career in research, to resume his career in research and teaching. He spends his summers at the Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory doing research, spends the rest of his time here as chair of biochemistry, working diligently to try to remove homeopathy from the curriculum, which he succeeds in doing in 1935. He wins several Teacher of the Year awards, writes a very influential and important textbook, Human Biochemistry, for which he receives a great deal of recognition as having written one of the most important textbook of his day. In 1954, he receives the only recognition he will ever receive, the Van Slyke Award. And on that occasion, many people write letters to him saying things like, Banting, Best, Collett, McLeod may have identified insulin, but your studies clearly led the way. And that included many of his great detractors. He simply said, my place in this story is of little consequence and shall be told another time. He never did actually tell his story. He retired in the late 1950s, passed away in 1966, a beloved husband, father, grandfather, and by all accounts, a beloved teacher here. So I often think to myself, I was working on this hormone, how might I have reacted if things had gone differently than they did? Would I have had the fortitude to find a new path in life and impact people in the world in a different way than I originally aspired to, but one that's no less valuable as a family man, a teacher, an administrator, and sometime researcher? I don't know, but I think in some ways that would have been the greatest challenge of all. Booker T. Washington said, success is to be measured not so much by the position that one has reached in life, but by the obstacle that one has overcome. And I think it's all of our abilities to overcome these obstacles that will define us. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here today, and I wish you all the great luck in the next phase of your career.
Thank you so much, Dr. Friedman. That was a fantastic. Will Dr. Halperin return to the podium to confer the degrees?
The best way to predict the future of biomedical science is to invent it ourselves. We will soon confer degrees on those who will generate the new knowledge that will create the future, as well as on those who will guide clinical laboratories upon which patients will rely for diagnostic studies, and upon graduates who will continue their education in medical and dental schools in the coming years. When I was a young boy, we celebrated science. It was the space race. Presidents Eisenhower and Kennedy assured Americans that our future depended on those trained in science and engineering and mathematics. And I have now lived to find myself in an era where there is an extraordinary assault on science, expertise, higher education, and free academic inquiry. The American Academy will not roll over and play dead in the face of this assault. Never in human history has a new viral disease called a worldwide pandemic, and in response, science sequenced that viral gene, created vaccines, clinically tested them, and put them into worldwide distribution in about a year. When those of you in the audience go to sleep tonight, you will not worry that your family members will be carried off by typhoid fever, tuberculosis, measles, whooping cough, diphtheria, and when you awake tomorrow morning and take your medications or use your devices, which will help control your hypertension or your diabetes, and which have been game changers for many forms of multiple sclerosis and cancer and heart disease. You may thank the predecessors of today's graduates, and you may be assured that the people who will receive diplomas today will make the world for our grandchildren better than ours. Science and its home in American higher education will not just survive this current assault by demagogues in their media echo chambers. It will prevail because our mission is too important not to. Will the students of the Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences please rise? Upon the recommendation of the faculty of the Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences of New York Medical College, and by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of New York Medical College and the Board of Regents of the University of the State of New York, I confer upon the class of 2023 the degrees of Master of Science and Doctor of Philosophy with all of the rights, privileges, obligations, and immunities appertaining thereto. Congratulations. You may be seated.
Thank you, Dr. Halpern. I call upon Dr. Marina Holz, Dean of the Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences, to present her class of 2023.
All right, I've been waiting for this moment because today we recognize the academic milestones of all of you who are graduating today with your master's and PhD degrees. You have each completed a program with rigorous requirements for graduation, including demanding coursework, original research, and written an extensive paper, a master's literature review, master thesis, or doctoral dissertation, held to the highest standards of research methods and originality. Your families and friends are here with you to celebrate and are so proud of you and your achievement. And we are very proud of you as well as you transition to the next phase of your professional careers. Thank you for joining the New York Medical College community and for your contributions to the Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences. I have the honor of presenting the candidates for the degrees of Master of Science and Doctor of Philosophy.
Crystal Adames. Mirabelle Belgam. Francesca Guzzo Crocamo. Sen Lee. Trisha Maris Magat. Doris Osuji Ilo. Alexa Pezantes. Kelly Morochu. Shreya Barma. Kamran Danishavar. Domenico Francis. Anna Coral. Sabrina Martinez. Julia Montero. Kelsey Murray. Laura Tarbe. Morella Verde. Nikhil Virani. Danite Yamani.
Roxana Navi. Elizabeth Berry. Jianru Chern. Price Aubert. Anish Maskey. Ibrahim Musa. Saqib Hussain. Jonathan Pascal.
Congratulations, everybody.
Congratulations, graduates. I call upon Dr. Halpern, Chancellor and Chief Executive Officer of New York Medical College and Provost for Biomedical Affairs of Touro University to conclude with the charge to the graduates.
The graduate school has recently celebrated its anniversary. This graduate school was built on the shoulders of its faculty, and I think we ought to take a moment to ask three members of the faculty to rise. Would Professors Marietta Lee, Francis Bellany, and Edward Messina please rise? The college thanks you for your service and thanks you for bringing the graduate school to where it is today. Thank you. It is the tradition of the college to offer the graduates a chance to recognize their parents, their families, and their friends who brought them to this special day. I invite the graduates to rise and turn and face your family and friends to thank them. Thank you. You may all be seated again. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you can appreciate the enormous logistics and planning that goes into events like today's. Tents like this do not appear, seats don't get placed, audiovisual systems don't work, photographers do not appear without an enormous amount of work. On the podium and in the audience are some people I would invite now to stand and to be acknowledged. Vilma Bordenaro of the Commencement Committee, Robert Lancia, Director of Public Safety, Ronald Matten of the Buildings and Grounds Office, and the ladies and gentlemen of the microphones and electronics, Michael Cotter, Michael Frankfurter, Juan Castro, and Corrine Zeschenik. Founded in 1860, New York Medical College is a 163-year-old community of scholars. It is a college which exists for the generation, conservation, and dissemination of knowledge about the causes, prevention, and treatment of human disease and disability. This college was founded by William Cullen Bryant and has changed with the times while remaining true to his core values. We know where Bryant stood in the 1850s. Free all enslaved people and give all newly emancipated slaves the vote. Votes for women. Allow workers to form trade unions and collectively bargain with management and have the right to strike. Opposition to the crushing burden of alcoholism on American workers. It is no surprise that William Cullen Bryant was the one picked to introduce an Illinois lawyer at Cooper Union to address the people of New York, Abraham Lincoln. It is no coincidence that Bryant's views were the same as Lincoln's campaign slogan, free land, free workers, free people. The founder of Touro University, Bernard Lander, as a graduate student in sociology at Columbia University in the 1940s, wrote his doctoral thesis on the causes and potential remedies of youth gang violence amongst the minority communities of Baltimore. New York City Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia created a Committee on Unity by mayoral executive order in 1944. Its purpose was, quote, make New York City a place where people of all races and religions may work and live side by side in harmony and have mutual respect for each other, to make democracy a living reality. Lander was a staff researcher for that committee, and I think we might well imagine that Bryant and Lander would have much to agree upon. New York Medical College and Touro University are defenders of respect for all and a place where there are no hyphenated people, students, or patients. For us, there will never be such a thing as illegal or undocumented patient or students. Human beings never were and never will be illegal. When Bryant established this college, it was in his time, and it remains in our time, a bastion against bigotry in biomedical science, education, and healthcare, a defender of respect for all, and a place where everyone is welcome, and we mean everyone. My dear graduates, you are now about to take your place in a long line of women and men in white coats in the laboratory and in the clinic from this college. This line is a unique line insofar as it has had a substantial presence of those who have been historically marginalized at other universities. At New York Medical College, our line includes Ira Remsen, MD, PhD, class of 1865, discoverer of saccharin and the second president of Johns Hopkins. Emily Stowe, class of 1867, the first woman MD in Canadian history, rejected by the University of Toronto because she was a woman. Susan Smith, the first black woman MD in the state of New York and the third in the United States, valedictorian of the class of 1870. Mary Stark, PhD, Drosophila researcher, the first to document the presence of metastatic cancer in Drosophila. In 1926, she becomes what was almost certainly the first woman to chair a biomedical science department at a historically majority medical college when she was named chair of the Department of Histology and Embryology. You have heard about Israel Simon Kleiner, Dean 1921 to 1925 of the medical school, almost certainly the first Jewish dean of a majority medical school in the United States. Class of 1933, Myra Adele Logan, first woman to perform open heart surgery and the second black woman to be elected to the American College of Surgeons. Lois Lilick conducted research on phytoplankton ecology at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, named in 1946 to chair our Department of Microbiology. We are a college proud of its inclusiveness. We know where our founder stood. We know where we stand. And like the song goes, like a tree standing by the water, we shall not be moved. To the graduates of our School of Biomedical Sciences, the faculty has sought ardently to educate. You have sought ardently to learn. We arrive at this day together in partnership. We are proud of what we have jointly achieved. While you have been with us, we have striven to impart both values and knowledge, because true wisdom occurs at the confluence of knowledge and values. We confidently send you forth, well prepared for the challenges proposed and set before you by your respective disciplines. As you go forward, I charge you to commit yourselves to the highest professional and ethical standards, to render to all people the dignity that is rightfully theirs, to remember that you are the stewards of the connected human family, to be compassionate to those in need, to be committed to free inquiry, and to seek the truth wherever it leads. and to remember with pride New York Medical College, as we will proudly remember you. We wish you Godspeed on your journey.
Revered members of the clergy, Chairman Mark, trustees, Chancellor Halpern, deans, faculty, distinguished guests, graduates, parents, and friends. The 164th commencement of New York Medical College is concluded. Yes, 164th in 163 years. We had a double commencement in 1975. Please remain in your seats until the stage party, faculty, and graduates have completed their recessional. Congratulations and best wishes. We're extremely proud of you and all the wonderful work that you've done here. Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone.
Go ahead.